We're talking about yoga here. No tight pants, no mattresses, and no crap. This is the real deal. The shadow dance. A Barbarian Lunatic production.
Look how nice it looks. Yes, I cleaned. You know I'm back. It's back. What's back? Conversation is a tough one. This video is part of the shadow dance. Okay, let's just see how to set this up. I'm not sure. Let's just see if you can see what I see. You cannot see this. It's a setup. Wait. You know, sometimes I say these things and then other things come in between. So I say it's a setup and then I think, are you being set up? So cleaning the bathroom and the kitchen was the first step in cleaning the rest. Okay, I will have to think about yeah. Oh my God. Jesus. Okay, I'm just gonna put this somewhere. Because I don't want to sit. I have pain in my right shoulder. I just want to discuss it and just talk about what you can do. Because I'm going to do this now because later it's going to be too late. No, certainly not. Okay, this is strange. So it's just good to fiddle a little to see what helps you as an individual. Because I cannot tell you what to do. I can just say, you know, this is what I do. But, I mean, I may not know what you need to do. You see what I mean? So I can only help you by telling you, oh my God, this is so strange. Oh, wait a second. Yeah, that's, for some reason the message is clear. Why is this better? I don't know, this room is, Jesus. I don't know, this pain that I'm feeling is disconcerting. And this setup doesn't really work. Okay, I'm just gonna do this. And the message is he's getting better and better, right? With channeling energy and doing these things, right? He's getting better and better. Problem is I don't see what you see, so I don't know what. Okay, I've tried already I'm so stiff. I'm so stiff. So, okay, let's talk quickly about Carlos Castaneda and Don Juan. So, the path of Don Juan is one of power. And it's to accumulate as much power as you can, so that in the end you can, this is like the selfishness of life. You yourself want strength because you have the feeling that I'm a warrior and you need to live the best life that you can. That's the challenge to a warrior. And then to have a good death. Now the question is, what do you think is a good death? Well, I wouldn't know, would I? Because until your death is there, you just know that it's going to happen, but you don't know when and you don't know how. It's going to probably take you by surprise. It's suddenly like in that movie, Children of the Sea. It's like, oh wow, I thought I had more time, and suddenly it's like, now you're done. So that to me could happen any day now. Just in general, So that again is living in a state of acceptance. So I can learn from the character of Don Juan, which I believe was a real person in the Carlos Castaneda books, but it's just hard to say. It just seems real to me. And what he says also makes sense, because what I've realized is there are places of power where you can go, and that certainly are places in nature. Now, if you've lived long enough and you made enough experiences, you can probably find in the area where you live the areas that are best for you, or you can just move somewhere else because you feel like that the area where you live is actually draining you. Now, the question is, what have I been doing these past couple of years and weeks and months? How much has my body changed? And why do I suddenly have pain here in my right shoulder? Now, I've been working on that already. And what I, for myself, have to acknowledge, that this is nothing that a doctor could help me with. Because if I would go there, I don't know what he would do. He might make it worse, because the image I have of doctors is that they have no idea about energy flow. They have no idea about what I know about spirituality and energy in general. So if I would go to a doctor, he might advise me a treatment that just is a symbol of ignorance in my eyes, such as hip replacements. It's just a symbol of ignorance. Nobody needs a hip replacement. And if a doctor would care about the human that is sitting in front of him, he would teach her, and if he would know anything about healing and self-healing and love, he would say to that woman or man or whoever sits there, well, go and, what's your diet? He would have to ask her questions. What do you eat? Why do you have problems with your hip? And then he would have to probably tell her what she should do. Now, at the same time, we live in a world, it's all worlds, it's self-responsibility. If you don't take care of yourself, somebody else will. But if you turn mad and stop taking care of yourself, then you can count on it that, due to the basic law of attraction, that whoever is going to come and take care of you is going to be just as mad as you are. And he's going to sedate you and cut you open and put something that's fake, into your body. And then you have to live with that. And then you may feel better for some time because now you've been basically injured on purpose by someone that just cuts you open and puts stuff into your body that doesn't belong there. You may feel better now because suddenly, now you've got kind of a workout that they prescribe you, and then you go to physiotherapy or something. Yeah, but how long are you going to do that? For a couple of weeks until the wound is healed. And then the same story is going to start again, because why should you change anything? Because if, the other side of your hip starts to create problems, well, you can just replace it again. And so I like to, instead of going to a doctor, and that has worked for me very well, that if I start to feel, because I'm very perceptive of myself, and I'm allowed to talk about these things because I do not advise anyone, this is just my opinion. But I also don't want to relax too much into my opinion, because who am I to judge, right? I'm not going to walk around and say you're not allowed to go to a doctor because, hello, self-responsibility. If you think that's what you need, then go ahead, right? Just go ahead and do it. Whatever, I'm not going to tell anyone to do this or that. I'm not going to tell you to do acupressure because I don't know if you know what you're doing. I'm basically experimenting with myself, but that's not really true because what I've been doing simply works. If I have an injury, I injured my ankle and I've recorded it. And what I did was, I just paid attention. Focus and attention is what brings healing. So if you focus on yourself, you learn to focus on yourself, then you can heal and you actually pay attention. But if you solely focus on yourself, then the people that you have in your life are maybe going to wither away. Simply because, let's say you have now a wife and a child. If you just make it your selfish trip and say, this is for my own spiritual development and I'm just going to run into the world now and do whatever I please, because I think it's better for me to just, have sex with random women, and just seek pleasure. I mean, you probably have every right to do that. But can you live with it? Does it really feel good to do that? I mean, I've met weird people. Who started to do iboga microdosing. And then they were in this kind of complete, they just wanted to be worshipped. I don't know why I'm talking about this, because that really was, to me, I found it weird. Why does a married woman send me images how she's dancing around in front of someone else while she's she's doing iboga microdosing. She clearly has no idea what she's doing. And that brings me back to my message. Psychedelics are not for everyone. If you start doing weird shit and you don't even see yourself anymore, be realistic. Not everyone will like me. But some people, they just take stuff and they think they're the most awesome guy in the world, And it's probably Napoleon. He probably thought he was really awesome for having discovered a continent. But he never discovered it because people already lived there. So nobody discovered shit, They just came there and they claimed it and then they said, now it's mine. They never went there and asked. you know, sorry, to barge in here. Can we learn from you? They just assumed that everyone else is a savage just because they live different and that they're primitive. But in terms of consciousness and awareness for nature, they were probably highly evolved people. And then ignorant people come that have weapons and all these tools. I mean, talk to someone who identifies with his car and try to explain to him that the car may make him feel powerful, but that he himself is an expression of weakness. Because of years of neglect, he needs the car to feel strong, to carry his shopping, to carry all these things that he buys, even to carry his children. He needs a car, and then he feels strong and powerful, but he's weak. And the question, how do you explain that to someone? Well, you don't. You just live your own life, and maybe not right now, but if you keep living your life like this, in 50 years' time, it will show that everyone who relied too much on science and cars is going to have a hard time when they get older, because then they're going to be cripples. And I simply say, in that sense, I choose my path. What I choose is what makes me stronger. So I would choose a woman that makes me stronger. I would choose the practices that make me stronger. I would choose the food and the diet that makes me stronger, which is a diet of moderation, so that I learn to navigate my life mostly by strength of will, so that I also know how to spend a good day without eating, or maybe even a good couple of days, and that's then what we would call fasting. But breakfast is derived from, and that I have from George R.R. Martin, to break your fast. So it's basically, fasting is whenever you don't eat, and then it's just a question, how long don't you want to eat? And is it really necessary to not eat? Well, it helped me, but I also realized I don't have to do it all the time. So instead of just not eating anymore, I just started to reduce and stretch out the times when I eat. And that I was basically forced to do because I didn't have any money. And I couldn't just go and buy food, so I was relying on other people to give it to me. And if you're in such a position, you will probably, you have to really humble yourself. And every time you go there, it's also, you rely on their energy, and they have to buy it for you to go there and get it. So you just learn to deal with the food that you have. And then you realize, okay, if I eat too much sugar, it confuses me. That's for one. It also deteriorates my bones and my teeth. I realized it because also I haven't brushed my teeth in a while, and nor will I ever do that again. I believe, right? But what I learned from that was that when I ate sugar, it sometimes hurt so much. And also certain forms of honey just were like pain to my teeth. And what I also realized that since I stopped brushing my teeth became less sensitive to cold. Not always. It really depends also on my diet, how much I'm working with my, it's like stretching out your jaw. But for that, you actually have to take the time. Now, if you already have a child and a wife and, you have a job and all these kinds of things, you just have to find times in between where you can do this. I mean, you can work in an office, and when you feel like everything is too tense, you can just sit down and you can just like massage your temples, do like relaxing stretching exercises with your jaw. But now I'm working on my right shoulder, okay? What? And I'm not sure why. I mean, I've been staying inside mostly. This is really painful. So I just try to find the spot that really hurts. Like, I'm trying to find the spot that's just really hard, where I can feel there's like a knot. And for that, of course, I need strength also, because it takes strength to do acupressure, which brings me back to holding exercises, why I go climbing, so that I have strength. You know, why I do these things with, like, occasionally, I won't do this always. And recently I have the feeling that I have actually too much strength, and it's getting a bit out of hand, and my body doesn't know what to do with it, or there's just a blockage here. Now the question is, why is there a blockage? One of the methods that you can use is actually Paidalajin, but the problem I have with this is that I often feel so insecure. You know, if I sit here and I do this, what are people going to think? Because if I do this and I attract their attention, then they're going to sit there and hate me for making a sound because they're out of balance. You know, everybody's so sensitive to sound and noise because they never do any of these things, right? They never sit down. You know, now I'm just pressing down here. Here. And I can feel it, that it's the source of my headache that I'm having. So energy is being blocked. And then I can ask myself, well, why? Well, this is the general area of the shoulder blade. And I can even feel it stretching into my ear. So it's also connected to hearing. Because shouldering a lot of weight, I'm shouldering a lot of emotional weight of people that also, you know, you have to be open to these things. I'm a content creator. I get a lot of attention, more attention than just a normal guy who works at the office, because I just openly show what I do, and people may, you know, project their anger on me because they don't know what else to do with that energy. You know, they just sit around, hate people, where they think, you know, what an asshole, what a weirdo. Okay, now I've got a good spot. And sometimes I have to look a little, you know, search for it. And then I start breathing. And then you can sometimes feel it, like wobbling around. And that's then energy being released. And it's also because when I sit, I often sit like this. And then I can also, if I sit like that, I can let my shoulders, my arms, I can let them hang. And then I feel how much pressure there is on my right side. My left is actually fine. So I gently pull down my arm, and then I fine-tune this by adjusting it a little and just seeing how I can stretch this. And then I start to move my head away from the pain so that I stretch it out. I don't know if that's a good method, but I think it is. because these positions that we have and this way of life, it's just unnatural. Like, I live in a home, in an apartment. And first of all, there's boundaries everywhere. So I cannot, I'm always blocked. In every direction, I'm blocked. If I walk through doors, I'm blocked. I'm just blocked everywhere. And that just means if I'm blocked all the time, my spirit can never, right, feel free of all of this. And then, of course, this, I'm not sure if that's the way to go, but, the way I think about it is sometimes you just have to activate yourself. And I haven't done this in a while because I was so focused on just doing this kind of work. And wow. I mean, to me, I think it helps. But I'm not an expert. Oh. And it's also hard to explain. So I often just sit with the pain and try to see its source. Because how often, I really feel like that if I'm here in this room and I do my stuff and I just live here, there's more happening than just, than just dust accumulating. Sometimes I really feel like I go through, let's say, 2 weeks of hard emotional work that you could call yoga. Channeling energy, doing this, doing that. Feeling all these things and then putting them into art. And then after 2 weeks of that, I clean and suddenly I realized, wow, I was in some kind of weird emotional space. I mean, literally like hell. And suddenly I'm back in heaven. And, if it were just dust, then how would you explain that you feel different about it? Because if it were just dust, then it would be neutral. It wouldn't explain why you feel like, why don't you feel like this then if you're out in the open? I mean, there's dust in the forest, but it's completely different from here. I can smell energy. And so when I start to feel, I can feel. It's not that I see that it's dirty, I start feeling uncomfortable. Like the walls are getting closer and I just feel. So do I just have to keep doing this or should I stop for a while? Or maybe I haven't been doing enough. Oh wow. This is like I can feel the pain pulling all the way from here into here. If I were to go to the boulder hall, I might stretch it out, but I just don't want to at the moment. So now I'm sitting like this. So don't overdo it. I'm quite flexible because I've been doing this also for a while. And usually I do it with breathing. So when I normally would do it, I wouldn't talk. So what I do is intuitive. I usually don't do this unless I have a problem. And when I have a problem, I start working on it. Well, maybe that's stupid, but I also, I stand a lot on the computer. You can also explain it in a simple way. I stand a lot on the computer, and because, you know, I mostly work with my mouse when I do art, it's a very one-sided activity. But I also see always the relationship between the energy that's being channeled, because all that rage, you know, I do feel a lot of like, you know, if I feel like punching through a wall, it's usually with my right side, and that's the masculine. And at the moment, it's certainly my masculine side that's taking charge. But what's the cost then? You know, why can't I be, I don't know, I'm usually not overly gentle with myself. You know, I do stuff like this in between, but I also forget. Because if my focus is on creating, then it's really hard to remind yourself that you still have a body, because when you create, you're like here, right? And your body just needs to function. And if it stops functioning and I start having pain and distracts me from my work, you know, okay, then I have to look for these pressure points. Okay, and then I can really feel there's stuff moving, there's tension. And earlier I did this already, I started to cry. I mean, not like, just, you know, I relax and then I start to yawn and then tears come out. And that's a way to, you know, relieve stress, relieve emotions, because what's stress? It's just too much. And if it's too much, you have to invest it into something, because you can sit around and be like, ah. And maybe I should really start to just sit and just meditate and like, but it's hard for me to take it serious, simply because I have, you know, I've been born into a situation where nobody ever does that. I mean, I'm basically the first yogi in my family, which is why I kind of have to figure it out for myself. I mean, I know that my mother has done a bit of it, but she just called it gymnastics. You know, there was no deeper awareness of energy being channeled. I assume, because otherwise why wouldn't she talk about it to me? So, yeah. I think that movement is always good. Because how often do you see a dog stretch? What does a dog do? A dog moves. And when he gets up, he does this. And that's all they do. So maybe I don't have enough strength and I need more. So now I can also stretch my neck, but just be careful with these things. You know, don't just imitate me. Now I'm pulling my head upwards to stretch my neck, and it's hurting in my right shoulder. This is something that has accumulated because of neglect. Probably if I would have done some kind of exercises every day, I wouldn't have this. But I've also stopped smoking tobacco. I reduced the amount of sugar. I stopped smoking cannabis. And so that also means if you get rid of certain habits, you know, you can be certain that the reason I smoked was probably that I already had these things. I was just trying to, you know, forget them. That's why I smoked. So, the strength you receive from psychedelics also comes with a cost, because your spirit may feel strong, but your body may actually weaken, and that's what you see in most people who smoke a lot. They just get weaker and weaker. They may feel like they're on top of things, but only as long as they smoke. And when they stop smoking, they just wither away. Which is why, at the moment, I still know too little about what I'm doing with movement, but I started to feel like this really helps. And the more I have practiced this, the better I get at it. But I still cannot tell you if this, if this is actually why I have problems with my shoulders, or but it does feel like, wow. I don't know, I feel like it's actually helping. It feels relaxing to a certain degree. But you certainly can also do too much. So maybe I should just take a hot bath at some stage. It's better to do that than to shower. I mean, wow, it's so super tight. Plus, neck area also stands in connection with fear. But yeah, I've been getting a lot better. I mean, this is a far stretch from where I've started. So often I try to use my body, the weight of my body, and then to balance it in such a way that it actually alleviates symptoms of pressure or whatever. And this is good for your back. And it will keep you erect when you try to meditate. So I always make these movements. I don't do just sudden movements, right? I ease into it, like I let my neck fall really slowly. Unless I feel like, and that's also why it's probably better to, to take your time, to say I'm gonna do an hour. Oh my God, this really hurts. That's my solar plexus. And then to do this, right? Because then, I'm getting to the good stuff. And then I will manage to smile again. But just to get there, to do such a simple exercise and not feel super exhausted, it takes a lot of practice and time and devotion, which is why yoga is the path of devotion also. You have to be devoted to this. It doesn't mean you can never smoke again, but it means that you learn to do these things just with the strength of your mind, that you can overpower yourself into doing this. Because if I always run around and I act like I'm fine, I will realize that it's impossible to maintain that. Because nobody's fine. I mean, I can ignore these pains and I can just say, yeah, if something happens, I'll just get a shoulder replacement. This is also what I do. You stretch to the right. Just gentle, gentle. This is not really advice. I'm just always saying that because if you're an idiot, you can really injure yourself. I have never injured myself with these things because I just take my time. If I don't know what I'm doing, I first inform myself and then I start and then I test how I feel. See, now I do go very gentle and it's very painful here. And that's after, sometimes you just feel fine. You have no worries, and you've got no pain, and then what seems like 3 days later, suddenly it starts to accumulate, and then you just have to start. You just have to act. Because if you don't act, it's just going to get worse and worse. And this may even be something I picked up from, I talked to you about that friend where I saw he had this huge lump on his back and I did this on it, I touched it, which is when it may have entered into me. I mean, I don't want to tell you to be afraid to touch others, but if you go around and you shake everybody's hands, you know how much stuff you pick up from people? Because some people, it's also, if you shake somebody's hands, it's always a battle of willpower. And, there are people whose hands I will never shake again. And that's just a fact. There are people I just refuse to greet. Because who are you that I need you to like me? If you were honest about liking me, then you would like me whether or not I shake your hands. And if you think it's disrespectful to not shake your hand, then from my perspective, it's disrespectful to try to force me. Because if you want to be acknowledged by me, then you just have to lead a good life. And even then I won't care, right? So I also say, I simply started to stay away from certain people. If I openly spend time and I go to the pub and somebody comes and talks to me and he wants to shake my hand, and it's like, if you don't shake it, then what's gonna happen? He may get really angry and want to pick a fight, but and if you don't want to fight him, or if you do, right, then maybe the next time he'll bring a knife, or his friends or whatever. So the path of a yogi is also one of seclusion. It's to be devoted, to retreat within, rather than to be without all the time. And what you also have to understand is that if you do change and you suddenly feel like you're full of love and you radiate all this energy and you feel this at home, and then you think, I want to share it with the world, and you go outside. Outside are angry and hungry wolves, my friend. And if you go outside, they will just take what you have and they will give nothing back. They will give nothing back. Which is why I made sure I'll just give a lot, right? Until you're satisfied, and then you're going to be grateful and maybe buy a book or something. That's the idea. Because otherwise, why should somebody do this? If I'm not devoted to it, what would you learn from me? I mean, Herman Melville, the guy who wrote Moby Dick, I mean, who was he? He clearly could have done some yoga. It's not enough to just have the consciousness about, we're all beings of God and all of that. You also have to take responsibility for that. Because the laws of duality say that everything, also the devil is a part of God. And, if you see God as this guy who, it's not like that. God is then everything. And that includes war, and that includes, the birth of a child, and that includes the slaughter of innocent. That just includes everything. I mean, in nature, it's normal that if a lion takes over the pride of the previous king, he will kill the innocent. And then if you watch movies like Troy, and Agamemnon says nobody's innocent, well, in a way, he's right. Because if we do believe in the cycle of rebirth, then everyone you see has already lived before, and that means he has committed crimes. And if he then happens to be in a city that is being taken over, and then he's going to be thrown over as a child, from the whatever, that's just how it is. Am I to sit around and cry for all the lost lives? I mean, stuff dies all the time. Not my responsibility. I'm just trying to keep myself alive. And, do what I feel I have to do to also keep my spirit alive. And that's then, you can work in an office, but this is spirit work. This is feeding yourself and also trying to figure out, is the job that you're doing really what you want to do for the rest of your life? Could that change? I mean, when you start doing work like this, you're going to change. And then what you think you want is going to change. Unless you know in your heart, I'm an accountant. But then the question is, do you want to keep being an accountant for these people? Or would you rather find someone where you think, I'd rather devote my work to him? Or is your devotion just to humanity? And you just like leading a simple life? Well, I've tried, just can't do it. Wow. So this is clearly, I'm just under a lot of pressure. And this simply helps, because I do feel differences that I feel super angry. Super angry, and I feel so But if I start doing this, and it's also, I listen to Chris Webby with headphones, and he's quite angry. That's like hammering. So I suggest to never wear Bluetooth headphones. It's terrible. It's just piercing you. Headphones in general are terrible. But yeah, if you feel like it, go for it. But then the cost may be that you're gonna have a blockage in your chakra of truth, because you're being hammered by somebody else's truth. So I like to see that everybody is responsible for themselves, which is why if you prefer to get stuff shot into your arm, because you believe that's going to help you because others have told you that it will, then that's self-responsibility. I just fight for the right to say no to such a treatment because it's invasive. And I'm glad that I said no and that I was in a position where I felt like I could say no. Because there was nobody else I had to keep alive, right? I just had to keep myself alive. And that's then just how it is, tough. Wow. This takes time, right? Doing things like this takes time. So you have to take the time that you would normally spend sitting there watching, me, or watching Netflix, or listening to music, or reading a book, or eating, or defecating, or calling with friends because you felt lonely. This is the time you have to take where you just turn everything else off, because what you have to realize that while I'm sitting here, I'm then focused on myself. I take the time away from other people and invest it into my own development, where I sit here. Normally then I would do this in silence. I can watch a movie while I'm doing this, don't get me wrong. I've just watched Coraline, which I thought was a Tim Burton movie, but it says Henry Selick, and I thought, is that like an alias? I'm not sure. Clearly looks like. And this is also dealing with the pain. So yoga isn't just fun, right? Yoga isn't, I keep saying that, it's not tight pants and mattresses. If you have a mattress, you can use it. I would never use a yoga mattress. I can see how it could help you because you have more grip, but I can also learn to, oh wow, now I've got a good spot. Sometimes it really takes time to find the spot. So you see how I do this? I position my arm like that because I can make a claw, right? I have 2 fingers on this thick sinew that's like connecting my neck or whatever to my shoulder. And then I'm using the weight of my arm and I pull down. And then I keep it fixed on this, and that's then acupressure. Then I sometimes have to put more pressure because I can't always hope that somebody's going to come and massage me. And if they do, they may not know what they're doing, and they just make it worse. So sure, if somebody would be here now, they could use oil, and then they could like really get into there. That's what you can do as a couple. You could even do it with friends, but the intent always has to be in healing. Okay, now I feel like it's getting better. But I have worked probably on this in total now. Yeah, okay, if you put it all together, since I became aware of it, maybe an hour, 2 hours. Okay, now this is certainly better. So I cannot say why I have this exactly, but I suggest it's probably several things that led up to it. This is stretching. I certainly feel this tightness in my right shoulder blade. And right side is always the masculine, So you just pull, right? Now I assist with my left hand, kind of pull my right arm. So I stretch it out, and then I feel even it goes until here. And that's how you can tell that, you know, if you've got a blockage here, you may feel it here, right? Sometimes you may have a blockage somewhere, but you feel it here. And now also because I've been, you know, I stopped smoking, you may get headaches because that's part of the detox. This also helps to alleviate pain. Fuck. This stretches out all the way to here. See, it's all connected. It's all connected in my body, and it's all connected everywhere. It'll also be stuff I receive from other people, and maybe they don't have time, and I work with it. You know, it's impossible to truly separate yourself from everything or everyone. But if I have the symptoms, then I have to do something. Then I cannot sit around hating others that it's because of them now, because I'm the one who has the symptoms, so I have to work with it. I'm just recording it to show you just what I do to make sure that I stay out of places like hospitals. And that I can do what I do, wake up and smile. Okay. Okay. It's just about transitioning from being sick to being healthy again. Okay. And then it may also be the clothes that you wear. Wow. Okay. Which is why, you know, my content is more like a diary. And then I would probably have to do this every day until it's gone. And then it may start somewhere else, right? So it's going to keep me busy probably. clearly here. And the neck is fear. Just gonna say that. And there's a lot of fear that I'm dealing with. Because clearly that's the subject. First book I wrote, with fear. And you may understand it, and you may see it in society, but it's a far stretch to think you understood it, to be really free of it. But I've come I've come a long way. And then you may not even understand, if you learn how to deal with your own fear, what it does to people if they are in your presence and you're completely relaxed, because nobody's relaxed. Nobody's relaxed. Nobody can sit like this, I'm not saying that I'm going to do this now, but nobody, just how many people do you know who can sit straight for hours, who can hold a plank for 5 minutes in a good form, right? So it's about getting the dignity of being a human back, not just a human, An animal that's free has dignity. Chimpanzee has dignity. A cat has dignity. And humans, they just trampled it by thinking they were greater than nature. And you can just see what it does to them. They just look like zombies. Normal people look like zombies. And so I'm clearly not normal. And I'm grateful that I can actually live it. And I can really appreciate being different. And yeah, sure, dignity of the unvaccinated. We've got it. But you also have to know how to present it. If you just sit around and just hate everyone who got the treatment, there's not a lot of dignity to that. Because you also have to understand why they chose it. And then that's just simply freedom of choice. Right? And you can also pay attention to the voice of people. Okay. That's going to tell you a lot about their honesty. So yeah. It's better, but it's still painful. I feel, ouch. You see, here also, this is something you should probably do every day. Sit down and work on this. It's going to save you a lot of trouble later in life to learn how to do this now. My legs have become like trunks. So I can just tell that it works. Okay. That's it. And then my feeling tells me also when to stop.